Hey, this is Mr. Griffin, and for this video, I decided to give it its own video. This isn't an Ain't This Some BS video or a Random Thoughts video or any other titled video I usually get it, or brand franchise video. I decided to give it its own video because this is how important that movie is to me, and it did hit me a little personally too. Yesterday, December 5th, for the 1 p.m. showing, I went out to my local theater to see the film Creed. And I'm going to tell you right now, I may go long with this, and this video is one of the few videos that I will put up not only on YouTube, but my own personal Facebook page. And for those of you that may complain, oh, it needs to be shorter and this, that, well, and this is probably going to be one of the few sarcastic things I say in the video. For those of you that say, oh, it don't need to be longer than 5 minutes and this and that, well, get on your ADHD medication and get over it, okay? Anyway, I'm also going to go on and say there will be some spoilers in this video. So if you have not seen Creed yet and do plan on seeing it, you may want to turn off this video right now and go see it first, then come back and watch this video. If you're not planning on seeing it or are going to see it anyway regardless of spoilers, well, continue listening. Anyway, I went in there at the theater to see it, had my popcorn bucket and my drink to wash it down. And one of the first scenes I see is Phylicia Rashad going to a juvie penitentiary, a juvie center, to see about little Adonis Johnson. And during the conversation, Adonis Johnson, Phylicia Rashad, who plays the widow of Apollo Creed magnificently. I think her name was Marilyn or Marianne, I'm not sure. She replaces the previous actress that played it. I'm not sure if she just didn't want to reprise the role or if the woman is no longer living. I'm not sure. If anybody knows, I'm going to ask this several times in this video on certain things. If you don't know something, please put down in the description box. Down in the comment section, excuse me. But Phylicia Rashad, Miss Rashad goes, when your father died, I was so furious. And he goes, I don't have a father. And then she responds back, yes, you do. He died before you were born. And then, of course, it's revealed there that the mother that Apollo Creed had the affair with on his wife also died shortly after little Adonis was born. So Adonis Johnson asks the woman, she said, what was his name? And that's how the movie begins. We fast forward to him as a young adult, as a young man, already secretly boxing while working a very good and very prosperous job after getting a very good education and getting a job, I forgot as what. I don't remember if they said or not, but it looked like a very high class, high paying job. But it was in his blood to fight, much like his father, Apollo Creed. So he quits the job and decides to take it to boxing full time, which does not please Mrs. Creed at all. Very upset. And the conversation between the two, it hit me on a personal level because Mrs. Rashad is somebody that I would view like my mom. And in fact, her and my mother are about the same age. Almost exactly the same age. And these are the type of back and forths that I would have sometimes with my own mother about things. So it definitely hit me. But Adonis decides he has to do this. And when no one would train him, not even the Delphi Center, which trained his father, which another poignant scene. He's watching the rematch between Rocky Balboa and Apollo Creed. But when he takes the stance to shadow box, he takes the stance of Rocky rather than his father, which that in itself shows a conflict right there. He views his father as the enemy, a man he has never even met. And it's poignant to be because so many black children, period, but especially black children, and particularly black boys, have grown up without their fathers in their lives. In this particular case, his father died before he was born, but in a lot of cases, the father either abandoned the family, or maybe even the mother didn't want the father there and kept the children away. I mean, all kinds of reasons. I could take up half the video just talking about that, but he's angry at a man he's never met. And unfortunately, with a lot of young black boys, black men, I mean, I won't go into it much, but even I've struggled with that. And in some ways, I still do. But they grow up angry at their fathers for various reasons. But back to the movie, he decides to try to get Rocky Balboa himself to train him, who is still alive in Philadelphia and has opened a restaurant called Adrian's in memory of his this long-time deceased wife. And of course, he has a conversation with Rocky, and he starts revealing things that only Apollo or people close to Apollo could have known. And he asks him, "How do you know about all this?" And he says, "I'm his son." And at first, Rocky doesn't believe it. He was like, "Wait a minute, hold up. I know Apollo's children." But then he explains that Apollo had an affair on his wife. And then the more he talks, he refuses to train him. But then he looks at the picture, looks at him, and he said, "I do see the resemblance now." And of course, Adonis would still come down to Adrian's and asks him, and he starts calling him Unc. Which that shows right there that he does view Rocky as family. Which I could see that because Rocky was so close to Apollo, first as an opponent and then as a personal friend outside of the ring. He was so close to the family that I guess he would view him as as an uncle. But we see this relationship develop between Rocky and Adonis Johnson. Very similar to the way Mickey Goldberg, played by the late Burgess Meredith, and Rocky back in the old Rocky films. The same way their relationship developed, pretty much. Only Sylvester Stallone's not nearly as grumpy as Burgess Meredith. Not even close. But that relationship develops. And of course, much like Rocky, he meets somebody while training. Adonis does. Played by Tessa Thompson, a woman named Bianca. Who, on a side note, tell me if Bianca doesn't look like a young Lisa Bonet. Seriously, that's the first thing I thought. Looking at her, I'm like, this girl looks like a young Lisa Bonet. But anyway, this movie goes through, we see the development. We do see a rift between Rocky and Adonis. But we see them both battling demons concerning Apollo Creed. For Adonis, of course, it's daddy issues. But for Rocky, there's still some guilt over what happened in Rocky 4. For those of you that have never seen Rocky 4, go watch it and see what I'm talking about. Sylvester Stallone is still holding some guilt over what happened to Apollo in Rocky 4 when he fought the Russian Ivan Drago. So, him helping Adonis is sort of his way of working through that guilt. And there's one scene in particular that really hit home, another one that hit home with. There's a lot of scenes that hit home with me, but there's one in particular that I see with. One thing I notice about black people when we meet folks, especially other black people, we have the biggest habit of trying to change names. Like for me, a lot of, like this one cat. Remember the cat that I talked about? Once had a situation where he thought I was trying to cause a rift between him and his girl, but that wasn't the case. Well, he had a habit of every time he saw him, he said, "What's up? What's up, Irv Gotti?" And I'm like, dude, and I've always felt some kind of way, and I can understand because in the film, the guy insisted on calling him Baby Boy Creed after it got out that he was Apollo Creed's son. He insisted on calling him Baby Boy Creed. He was like, dude, that's not my name. He was like, man, I wasn't trying to be fun, but you know what though? In a way it is disrespectful, especially if you don't really know them. If you don't really know them like that, that's considered rude. Now, if you've been boys with them for a while or something, that might be one thing. Like, there's this pastor that have known me since I was a little boy. In fact, my mom and his wife used to be really good friends. I think they still are. And I practically grew up with his children. In fact, one of them went on to become a minister. I don't know what the little sister is doing, but the oldest one is now a teacher at the local college here, and he's running in politics. The oldest child. But he always called, whenever he sees me, he still say, "Hey, what's up, Mr. E. Verone?" And of course, where E. Verone is my first letter, my first name, Irvin, and then my middle name, which is Verone. He's one of the few people I will let get away with that because, he's known me for years. He's almost like another father figure to me. So in his case, I don't view it as disrespect. He don't mean nothing by it. But you could tell this guy was sort of being funny, and Adonis doesn't handle it very well. And of course, there's a little mini brawl and stuff, and he gets himself in trouble. And then, of course, he's had a lot of making up to both Rocky and Bianca because it was at the night of Bianca's big concert, and it was sort of embarrassing. So, but we see a lot of bonding and everything. And really what it's about, not only it's about a man trying to fight through his issues, through his daddy issues. It's also a man trying to fight for respect. Because many just view him as the only reason he's here is because of his name, because of who his daddy was. And there is a side note. This kid Adonis is born out of an affair. So, and one of my subscribers, I forgot who, actually wrote to me prior to me going to see Creed and asked me, "What do you think of all this? Why does the black guy have to be the guy having an affair and this and that?" And honestly, I went in there with an open mind. I'll admit, I wish they would not have gone there with Apollo. But at the same time, I said, well, let me see how they handle it. In the film, it was handled masterly. They did an ESPN segment with two of the real reporters from there. I don't know their names. If you know anyone that's seen the film, if you know their names, please tell me down in the comments section. I've seen them before. Anyway, the white reporter goes, "How does this revelation tarnish Apollo Creed's legacy?" And I like the way the black reporter answered it. He was like, "No, it doesn't. It doesn't tarnish his in-ring legacy because he made a mistake. He did what a lot of athletes, including athletes in boxing, have done. He didn't murder nobody. No one died. Yeah, he made a mistake. He shouldn't have cheated on his wife, but I don't think it tarnishes his legacy." And they left it at that. After that little segment, they left it at that. You don't hear about it again in the movie. Of course, it is thrown up, well, you're only here because you're Apollo's son, including the guy that he fought during the press conference. Even was like, "Look, you're only here because of your name." I can't copy that British accent, but he said, "You're only here because of your name. Now your trainer there's a legacy. Your father was a legacy. You're just here because of the day." And they nearly get into a brawl at there. So there's tension there, but it's a fight for respect for Adonis Creed, which by that point he's taken the name of Apollo. He said it's a fight for respect with Adonis Creed. Overall, this movie is beautifully done. It's masterfully put together, and I would even to non-Rocky fans, I would recommend. You don't necessarily have had to have seen the previous Rocky films to enjoy this movie. You don't. And before I end this video, what I've been told in most communities in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, especially the African American community, the actions of Apollo's widow, taking in that boy that wasn't hers and this and that was commonplace in the black community, especially where men would have affairs on their wives or whatever and have kids out of wedlock. That went on a lot where were widows or whatever, or they would make sure the husbands took care of those children they made with that other woman. There wasn't all this like hatred that you see now in the black community. Like if that went on now, of course the wife's gonna be upset in any era. But if that went on now, they'd have been like, "F that little bastard." Basically that would be the attitude. That wasn't her attitude. And like I said, the part of Mrs. Creed was played masterfully by Phylicia Rashad, and hats off to her in that film. But overall, I give this film 2 thumbs up. Now, I don't pay attention to the Oscars much, but come Oscar time, I may have to pay attention to see how this film does, or if it wins one or not, because it certainly is a contender for an Oscar. And if it wins one, that's one time I will not be complaining. If it wins like Best Picture, I will not be complaining one bit. I'll be like, yeah. Since the director of this film is also the director of Fruitvale Station. If anybody, and everybody's been telling me I should see that film, so I may consider watching that film soon. Anyway, that's all I got to say on this movie. And like I said, highest recommendation to go see it. I'm out for this video. I'm Mr. Griffin.